Read an essay called Turning Soixante-Dix, and it's in a book edited by Victoria Zackheim called The Face in the Mirror. I'm going to read a part of the beginning of the essay. My dream, my fantasy as a child was to become famous. I remember being 6 years old and imagining a camera following me around the backyard as I talked to my invisible interviewer. Like a miniature Martha Stewart, I discussed the flowers. Oh yes, I love flowers. These are marigolds. I planted the seeds myself. This was long before video cameras, People magazine, and the cult of celebrity. My family didn't even own a television set in those days, so I'm not sure how I knew about fame or what my grasp of it could possibly have been. But the moment of being in that imaginary spotlight, explaining myself in the garden is a vivid memory. Maybe I connected being famous with being popular, and if I were popular, I'd be loved, or was it a matter of being heard, having a voice? All this might lead you to the conclusion that I had a deprived and lonely childhood, but no. I was born into a normal, suburban, middle-class family. My mother was a housewife who played classical piano. My father was in charge of the Woolworth light bulb accounts for General Electric and commuted from Westchester County into New York City every day. The constant admonishment of my childhood was, better light, better sight. When I was 5, a baby brother arrived on the scene, which possibly could be a clue to my sudden desire for fame. My father took a lot of home movies of my baby brother during his first Christmas with us. There he is at 6 months old, adorable in his red Santa jammies, cuddled and cooed over by my mother. And there's me, 5 years old, skinny, white blonde hair, socks drooping, dancing my heart out for the camera in front of the Christmas tree. Frantic for attention, wanting to be the star, looking totally unhinged and desperate. To watch this old home movie makes you want to reach out and pat the kid and say, hey, it's all right, you're loved too. Around the time of my backyard interview about the marigolds, I wrote and illustrated my first book, The Butterfly Who Flew Too Close to the Sun. It was about 8 pages long, and the ending was fairly tragic. The butterfly melted. Since I was only 6 years old, I doubt this was a metaphor for fame and its consequences. I simply loved drama and excitement. One day in first grade during show and tell, I announced that I had an older brother and sister who were movie stars in Hollywood. This, of course, was a huge lie, but I had nothing interesting to show or to tell that day, and I didn't want to bore anybody. My lie had an electrifying effect on the entire elementary school. I became popular overnight. Kids would gather around me and ask questions about my movie star brother and sister, and the more questions they asked, the more lies I had to tell. This all grew into what felt like a nightmare. When anyone asked what my fictitious siblings were filming, I had to make up whole movie plots. One day when a friend was visiting my house and asked where they lived when they were home from Hollywood, in desperation I described an entire apartment hidden away in the attic that we were not allowed to go up to see. In the midst of all this, my mother came to school and my teacher noted with surprise how young she looked to have grown children in Hollywood. My mother was quite startled and my lie was exposed. Later she said to me, you have a wonderful imagination, but you must always tell the truth. In 5th grade, we had story hour every Friday afternoon. We'd all read something we'd written the previous week. I discovered that if I kept my story going, wrote it in chapters, and left my heroine in dire straits every Friday afternoon to be continued, steep cliffs, typhoons, and runaway trains were always involved. Kids would flock around and ask me, what happens next? I was home free. I was popular, if not famous, and I was a storyteller, which gave me permission to tell the very best lies I could come up with.